Hey, how's everybody doing? I am your resident 10-time Amazon bestselling author DeMarcus James, and I have a little bit of free time. Well, I have a little bit of free time, and I decided to assemble a bookshelf. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you an overview of each one of my paperbacks that I've written over the course of my 11-year career as a published author. Lots of titles, lots of ups, lots of downs, but hey, still here. And let's see. Let's see what DeMarcus James has for you today. All right. One of my favorites. I just love the name of it. It's called Lustful Tales, The Exotic Women of Greenville, South Carolina. I took this book cover. Actually, it was a picture I took downtown one day and just kind of played around with the graphics. And I made all of this on Microsoft Word. Wrote the book on Microsoft Word, made the book cover on Microsoft Word. And still one of my favorite titles is still selling today. I am from Greenville, South Carolina, and hey, what can I say? Greenville does have a lot of beautiful women. Brazilian Cartel. If you're into street lit and the whole like drug dealer kingpin love story idea, you'll love this. The Thicker the Wetter. This is my very first SSBBW series. If you do not know what that means, that means supersized, big, beautiful woman. And it's still a series that's still selling pretty well today. Temptation from the Pulpit. Basically, it's about a pastor who comes back to his hometown after getting his PhD in divinity, and he has to go through the pitfalls of becoming a new pastor, as well as facing the temptations of what he's already going through in his everyday life. Hey, you never know what people are going through. Damp Panties. This is basically part of another series, and you're going to see that. It's kind of, honestly, this is kind of the spin-off from the Lustful Tales, actually. It's in the same realm, and if you're into smut, you'll love it. Miss Bonita, the next door neighbor. This is an SSBBW, mature woman erotic story. And okay, I'll say this because in case you cannot figure out, I am not a public speaker, and this is just me, just being me. This is gonna be one take, one thing, no edits, and it's gonna get uploaded. Bottom line. But yes, basically it takes place in 2004, which is one of my favorite years in general. I feel like I got the best music and kind of reliving those memories. And it's based off a woman from my past. And that's all I'm going to say. Going Both Ways. The Bisexual Dope Girls. Self-explanatory. Drug dealing girls that go both ways in the bedroom. So it has a little bit of narcotics and a whole lot of romance. It's kind of fun. I might make maybe a couple sequels. I don't know yet. Only time will tell. The Brazilian Connect. This is another series that I'm working on, and I've already put out 2 books and kind of a spinoff within the book. And it's about a drug dealing family based out of Brazil. And they are kind of like imagine like a Pablo Escobar bloodline going down. And they've been selling drugs to across the globe. And in the midst of it, there is the heir to the throne has to question himself if he wants to continue the legacy of his family or if he wants to forge his own path. Brazilian Mistress. Basically, it's about a martial artist out of Brazil, and it's a 2-parter so far. You're going to see part 3 soon. Spoiler. But with that being said, he has to go through the chronicles because he is married. He is Brazilian and he meets a beautiful Brazilian woman, and the rest is history. Okay, let's see. All right, move this one. Okay, and this is basically another part of the whole Lustful Tales Exotic Women of Greenville, South Carolina. It is called The Luscious Cougars of Greenville, South Carolina. As you can figure it out, I do like older women, and a complication of stories that makes for an interesting read. Speed Demon, a roll race novel. You don't know what roll racing is? That is when you see motorcycles line up, typically to about 40 to 60 miles per hour, and they take off. And it's kind of basically street racing for motorcycles. And on this dash, it's a Hayabusa, which is personally the kind of motorcycle that I own. And with that being said, it takes place around time when I was really getting into motorcycles. I just kind of wanted to create like a interesting theme to go along with it to kind of help move past certain things from that time period. And that's all I'm going to say on that. Okay. Cassowary. If you're into paranormal and martial arts, if you were into the movie The Crow, you're going to love this. Overall, it's about a cop that comes back from the dead to avenge the one case he couldn't solve and the ones that killed him. And he wants redemption so he can finally rest in peace. Undertaker reference of the day. Because if you know me, you know I love pro wrestling. And let's see what other books I have to talk about. Okay. The Pastor's Wife's Private Commission. Overall, let's see. Kid grew up broke, and he later on becomes very wealthy. The pastor's wife remembers back when he was broke, and she kind of turned her nose up at him. And when she sees him again, she still thinks he's broke, and he is the one that could change her life in more ways than one. So, in reality, with that being said, be careful how you treat people because you never know who you're going to meet and what that person's going to be one day. Explicit Confession of a Male Escort. The special thing about this book, this is my very first book to hit bestseller without a book deal. And I did this back in 2026. And it let me know that I do not need a book deal to be successful in this industry. And ever since then, I've been independent and I've been making a lot more money. Behind the Music 1 and 2. Okay, if you knew me around 2007, 2008, I was making beats in the hood. And this is in Greenville, South Carolina. And even though the beats didn't go anywhere, I still had those thoughts in my head. I still had those melodies in my head that I made. And even though they didn't go that far, the idea still is in my head of what if. That's one thing about my books. A lot of them are just what ifs. If things had gone a certain way, that's why I can write so many, because there were so many things I was interested in, there were so many things I was into, and even though a lot of those things didn't pan out, the thought was there, and I knew that I could create it. I could still continue it in a different way. Even though it might not be in reality, I can still do it in fantasy. And the fantasy keeps paying me. The Stroke of His Foot-Long Dick. What can I say? Self-explanatory. About a martial artist who is in a not-so-good marriage, and he does what he has to do to be able to cope, while at the same time, she has a story she has to tell as well. What I will say, be careful with people you meet at church, because sometimes the church ones are the worst ones. Okay. Turned Out by a Real Freak. Basically, it's about a nerdy kid who is basically the valedictorian of his graduating class, and a girl comes to the school that totally rocks his world. Okay. Completely fancy, by the way. Alright. Oh. full series, the very first series that I ever wrote that got published, the full Ecstasy series. This is the book that had number 7 on bestseller. This one peaked at number 19. And the ironic part is, this book still pays me. It's always going to be very special to me because it was what let me know that my imagination can pay me. And to this day, it still does. And let me just give you a brief overview of the series. The dude, Jacoby Daniels, he is a male model, and the lady works at his school. He had his eyes on her. She puts a letter in the back of his yearbook, told him not to read until after he turned 18. He became successful. It took a little bit longer than after turning 18. He reads the book. Reads the letter, calls the number. The rest is here. The rest is history because ecstasy is not a drug in this book, it's actually a feeling. Okay. All right. Okay. But trust me, this is not all the books. There's more. Tempted Confessions of a First Lady. Okay. This is about a pastor's wife who comes to a new church. She isn't happy in her marriage, and she's married to the pastor, and she gets to know the drummer a little bit better, and temptation goes a long way. Nympho, Chronicles of a Sex Addict, about a successful African female who cannot control her urges, and she will do anything she can to satisfy her needs. Sweet Tea. A pimp named Sweet Tea. Based on a true story. It technically is. It's based off someone I met in the hood who kind of gave off pimpish vibes. I don't know if he was a real pimp or not, but I was kind of wondering. Then I rewound the clock in my head back to the 80s and 70s. Kind of like black position movies like Superfly and Shaft, things like that. And I just kind of wanted to just like live in that moment for a little while. This is a series about Deborah Dwight, series about a Brazilian BBW porn star. And overall, it talks about her life off camera. Because even though people portray themselves one way on camera, you don't know what they're dealing with off camera. Big Booty Horror Diary of a Streetwalker is about a streetwalker who is willing to do whatever her customer wants if they're willing to pay the right price. Caught Between Love and Hell. If you're into Romeo Must Die and Romeo and Juliet, things like that, fused together, and put my own twist on it. The Nasty Thought of Greenville, South Carolina. About a female rapper who is also doing more than selling drugs because she has some kind of inspiration. And most of her lyrics are very X-rated. Night of Passion. Basically, it's a play on words. And it's about a guy who knows a girl who comes to see him in a cabin, gets snowed in, and they have fun of their own. 30 and 0. Jalen's mixed martial arts career. You're going to see that. This is part of another series. You're going to see, just going to blow your mind. Stay. Alright. One of my newest releases, it is called What You Don't Know Won't Hurt You. Okay. Basically, it's about a guy who comes back to his hood, and this girl that he's known since high school, he had his eyes on, and she tempts him in a way. He's always wanted her, and he's willing to do whatever it takes to get her. So, Penthouse Suite 721, the longest book I've written at the time, about a prodigy who was half black, half Japanese, and has a thing for curvy white women. And that is like the first interracial book I ever wrote. And it took me a little while to write, but I'm happy. It's one of my favorites. Deep Stroke, the best dick in Greenville, South Carolina. I promise you that is not about me, but it's about a musician who happens to come back to his hometown of Greenville, South Carolina after being on tour and kind of after hooking up with one girl, word gets around he's back in town and how good he is, and one thing leads to another. Lady on the Front Pew. It is about a minister. He comes back after his mentor asks him to come to preach one Sunday. And while he's there, the pastor dies. He's nominated as the interim, and the lady on the front pew does more than enough to grab his attention. Shockingly, in this book, I actually wrote a full-length sermon in this book, so you get a little bit of smut, and you can get the word, and yeah, best of both worlds. Is that all of my books? Okay. Okay. I believe those are all my books, except for this one that hasn't came out yet. It is called 12-Inch Monster, the best dick on campus. Well, all I gotta say is this. Watch out for the quiet ones when you're in school. Now, here's the fun part. Something that took me 4 years to do. I have written the world's longest book series. You gotta deadlift the series, that's saying something. This is a 14-part series called The Brazilian Casanova. This is how big the book is. It is the size of printer paper. Like when you buy printer paper, like 500 sheets, that's how big the book is. And there's 14 of them. Let's see. This is part 2. You're not going to believe this when it's done. Okay, this is part 1. Just line up. And ironically, it is actually a total of 1,376 chapters. This is truly a workout. I'll just do this as it comes out. Alright. This is the last book, so it's going to go over here. So that's going to be part 14, part 13. Now while I'm doing this, I'm going to give you an overview of the series. It's about this guy. He grew up in Brazil, and while he's in Brazil, he comes to the United States to live with his uncle. And basically the uncle, I will say this, the uncle is based off my uncle that passed away when I was 16. He was one of the most influential people in my life. And kind of honoring him with that, even though he isn't Brazilian, the way he died was not under the best terms. And to this day, it still affects me, but he was also one of the most influential people in my life when encouraging me to step outside the box to be successful. And I could not thank him enough for that. And throughout life, he joins the NFL, he joins the UFC, he becomes a pro wrestler, and ultimately, even though he's meeting a lot of women, throughout the course of all of this, he's still more than successful. And let's show you. This is the full series. Sorry, let's start from over here. 1. Start on the book during COVID. It was July the 11th of 2021, and I finished it on December 24th of 2025. So it did take me a while to write it, but I am happy with the results. It is over 3.9 million words, and it was totally worth it. It is on Amazon. It is on Kindle. The only thing that it is not on is it's not on Audible, but at the same time, you're not going to find a book longer. And if you're still watching the video, I do thank you. Be blessed. And that is my library. That is the library of DeMarcus James. And you all be blessed, and you all enjoy the rest of your day. And stay tuned for more videos I might be doing.